Grain Elevator and Processing Society is hosting their annual GEAPS Exchange Conference at the Kansas City Convention Center, February 22nd through the 25th of 2025. GEAPS Exchange is the biggest and best show in the grain industry with more than 400 exhibitors and 45 hours of education. It is the best place to find grain handling and processing operation solutions all in one place. GEAPS Exchange brings together industry professionals from across the world to help build professional networks and connect with the products you need. Come walk the trade show floor, take part in live demonstrations, innovation stations, and see new equipment. Make valuable connections through a variety of fun and exciting social events. Early bird pricing ends January 28th. Learn more and register at jeeps.com/exchange.
GEAPS as a global organization, we are here to connect and serve the global grain industry. When I marry that mission and vision of GEAPS as an organization with a strategic plan that was recently adopted by our International Board of Directors, I, Jim, come up with a central theme. And that central theme to me is this: GEAPS is a thriving community of thought leaders. We are here to enhance the careers of those that work in the grain and grain processing industry. And how do we do that? We do that by bringing awareness, by bringing information, by bringing educational and networking opportunities.
Meet John Caupert, the Grain Elevator and Processing Society's new executive director, in this episode of Whole Grain. Hello and welcome to the show. Welcome to the Whole Grain Podcast. My name is Jim Lenz, your host and producer of the show and the Director of Global Training and Education at GEAPS, where the mission of the Grain Elevator and Processing Society is to champion, connect, and serve the global grain industry and our members. At GEAPS, we work to be the global community and thought leader for the grain industry, which feeds and fuels the world. Thanks for listening today and for joining the network of thousands of other grain handling and processing professionals across the globe taking strategic steps to grow professionally. The Whole Grain Show gives you the competitive advantage to win at work so you can make more of an impact. Get ready to be inspired as we sit down with John Caupert, the visionary new executive director of the Grain Elevator and Processing Society, GEAPS. John brings to the table a lifetime of agricultural wisdom from his early days on the farm to his transformative work at the National Corn to Ethanol Research Center. We discuss his highlights of his first 4 weeks on the job, his background and experience. I also asked him about his motivation to join GEAPS and what makes the grain industry so exciting to him. Then I inquire about his perception of the current state of the grain handling and processing industry. John also shares how he anticipates engaging with the international membership base in the greater grain industry. Then we dig further on what he thinks is the underlying theme why so many are attracted towards GEAPS. And of course, we can't have a conversation without talking about GEAPS Exchange, the biggest and best show in the grain handling and processing industry. All that and more coming up next. It's so exciting to use this Whole Grain Podcast channel to introduce Whole Grain listeners to the new executive director of the Grain Elevator and Processing Society. His name is John Caupert. John, welcome to the show.
Well, hello, Jim. It's great to be here with you today.
Now, John, this is your very first appearance on the show, but we want to let listeners know that you, John, will be active with our GEAPS Whole Grain Podcast into the future. John may not be in every episode, but you'll hear his voice in many upcoming shows, including the next episode about our big GEAPS Exchange episode as we prepare you for the biggest and best show in the grain handling and processing industry. Our podcast offers a unique opportunity to connect with so many grain professionals from around the world, and easy to share, easy to access, a means of delivery. In fact, we now have listeners from 62 different countries at the time of this recording. You can listen to the show on your drive to and from work, while you're exercising, or however and wherever you choose to do so. So, John, I'm looking forward to working with you on projects, including the Whole Grain Show. We're excited for your interest and participation in future episodes.
Jim, I'm looking forward to it as well. I mean, when I think not only about this podcast, but just the future opportunities that we have, there are so many subject areas that we're going to be able to touch on, bringing awareness and information, not only to our members, but frankly, to the entirety of the grain and grain processing industries.
Wonderful. John, I often start the show by asking guests if they have a mantra or a success quote that they live by professionally. John, do you have a mantra or two that you'd be willing to share with our listeners?
It's interesting that you asked that question, Jim, and frankly, anybody that has ever worked with me, for me, or that I've worked with and or reported to, there's really two or three, and if you don't mind sharing the three, there's really two or three beliefs and philosophies that I have, beginning with respect. I'm big on respect and reverence for those that have come before you in whatever role you're in, because those are the people that have paved the opportunity highway. Secondly, volunteerism. Whether a person gets involved in their local community, their local church, whatever, a school, whatever it might be, I truly believe that it is incumbent upon all of us to share the time, treasure, skills that we have with others in a volunteer role. That being said, if there's one success mantra that I truly do live my professional career by, it's this saying, not one that I created, but one that I use, and it goes like this: if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And to me, Jim, what that saying means is that always be open-minded. Be open-minded to a diversity of opinions, ideas, and thoughts. And that's how we evolve and progress.
I love it. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
John, you officially joined GEAPS on December 11th of last year, 2023, which was not long ago. It is now late January of 2024 at the time of this recording. You've been highly active, for sure. Listeners may be curious of the activities, interactions, and kind of what your schedule has been like during your first, 40 days or so as a new leader at GEAPS.
Yeah, sure. Well, aside from the information coming at me like drinking water from a fire hose, because that's what it has felt like at times, I have spent this first 6 weeks or so doing exactly what I discussed in the interview process and with our international board of directors. I have been active in engaging with the GEAPS community. And when I talk about the GEAPS community, I'm talking about members. I'm talking about chapter leadership, the 24 plus chapters that we have throughout North America. I'm very interactive with the GEAPS media group as well as the foundation. Now, these efforts have been complemented by also reaching out to my friends, peers, colleagues throughout the agriculture, trade organization, and trade association world as well.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing. John, there's so much I like about your background. I find it all very interesting. And one thing for sure is agriculture has been an ongoing theme since you arrived on this planet. And in your previous role, prior to joining GEAPS, you served as the executive director for the nonprofit organization, the National Corn to Ethanol Research Center, or NCERC. You have such breadth and depth in your experiences. Please share with whole grain listeners some of your background, education, and experiences. Who is John Caupert?
Yeah, sure, Jim. I appreciate that question. Well, I'm a farm kid, not only at heart, but in reality. I was born and raised on a grain and livestock farm in southern Illinois, a farm in which my parents, my very youthful parents in their 80s in age, still reside. From an education standpoint, I have both a bachelor's and master's degree in agribusiness economics. My master's degree focused more on agriculture policy. Jim, I've been blessed, not only throughout my life, but my career. I'm 3 decades into, as you described, all things agriculture. Right out of college, I was working as a grain merchandiser, then moved into a role as a grain accountant. In that role, I worked with the front lines of production agriculture, the farmer. After graduate school, I went to work as a corporate contractor for the world's largest brewer, where I had marketing responsibility of an excess of 2.5 million tons per year of spent brewer's grains, a processed grain. Approximately 20 to 22 years ago is when I first became familiar with GEAPS. I went to work for a company in which we marketed grain quality testing systems, specifically in the area of mycotoxins, to all levels of grain and grain processing. Again, this is where I became intimately familiar with GEAPS. And as you mentioned there, yes, I spent the last 17 years as the executive director of National Corn Ethanol Research Center. As a nonprofit entity, I oversaw the commercialization of more than 80 products and technologies that have been widely adopted throughout the corn ethanol industry. And a real point of pride is during those 17 years, we saw the U.S. corn ethanol industry grow from a 1.6 billion gallon industry to the 16 billion gallon industry that it is today.
What motivated you to join our organization in this leadership role?
It's interesting. Different folks are motivated by different things. First off, over the last probably 3 to 5 years, I've repeatedly told myself that there's one more big thing out there to accomplish. I just didn't know what it was, Jim. I didn't know what it was, didn't know where it was. And some would argue this opportunity at GEAPS, this is it, and it likely is. That being said, though, Jim, throughout my career, what I've always been motivated by is people, and more importantly, seeing the success of those people. And as a member-driven organization, that's what GEAPS is all about. People, highlighted by our 3,000 plus members.
Now we got a little bit about your background and some personal insights there. Could you share a fun fact or a hobby or two that our audience may not know about you? And when they meet you, they may have something common or certainly something fun to talk about.
Yeah, a couple of maybe 2 or 3 fun facts. Yeah, maybe
Sounds
2
good.
or 3 fun facts. One is I am a Hallmark Christmas movie nerd. This past Christmas season, beginning Friday, October 20th, all the way through January 2nd, it was nonstop Hallmark Christmas movies, and that's something that some folks find interesting. But here's a fun fact for you: is that even though I've been a licensed pilot for over 30 years, I'm deathly afraid of heights.
Oh, wow.
When I share that with folks, the next thing is, can you please explain? I can't really explain it other than I can fly an airplane, but I don't like going up on a ladder.
Is there a particular aspect of the grain industry that you find personally fascinating?
Jim, there is. And this is where I really think that where I spent the last 17 to 20 years is going to prove some real opportunity, not only for GEAPS and GEAPS existing members, but potential members. What I'm talking about is the corn ethanol industry. And here's why, Jim. When you think of the nearly 200 corn ethanol plants that exist just here in the United States alone, every single one of those corn ethanol plants, they start off as a grain elevator. It's corn coming in by way of truck, rail, and in some cases, a barge. The handling systems are that of a grain elevator. But then when you think about the very first step in the corn to ethanol process, corn goes through a hammer mill. That's processing. So to me, the corn ethanol industry, and in particularly those corn ethanol plants, encapsulates everything that grain elevator and processing society stands for. I find that fascinating. And I can also say that equally on the soybean side of things. The soy crush and conversion into biodiesel, Jim.
And that's why your background's so interesting. How do you perceive, John, the current state of the grain handling and processing industry?
Jim, when it comes to all things agriculture and agriculture related, which is what we are and who we serve, I'm a realist. I take great pride in being a realist. That being said, I take great pride in identifying opportunity, seizing opportunity. And when I look at the entirety of the grain elevator, grain processing industry, that's exactly what I see. I see opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. And here's why, Jim. The folks that work in the grain and grain processing industry, they truly are the heart and soul of who we work with and who we represent. And here's the reason why. These are the folks that are taking agricultural products, corn, soybeans, wheat, oats, rice, whatever it might be, and they are converting those agricultural products from farm to fork, from farm to fuel, and from farm to the thousands of different products that are made from grains. So again, what I see is just a sea of opportunity waiting for us to capture it.
It's exciting, and we're excited to have you here. And it was great to learn that you were also excited to play a big role in future podcast episodes of the Whole Grain Show. In addition to the podcast channel, in what ways do you anticipate engaging with our international membership base and broader grain handling and processing industry?
We'll be back after a quick break.
GEAPS Training and Education Program is proud to release Introduction to Grain Operations. This new course is a multimedia version of what was known as GEAPS 500, with dynamic graphics, video examples, photographs, multidimensional illustrations, animations, and interactive exercises. This course is sure to prepare your teams for the work you need them to do. This is a great industry primer at a great price. For a limited time, GEAPS members may purchase the course for just $195. Non-members still save and pay just $295. For more information, visit GEAPS.com.
Engagement, that's who I am. For Jim, for the listeners out there, I refer to myself as being old school. Now, my daughter would refer to me as just being old. But I think I'm old school. What I mean by that is I'm an in-person, face-to-face. I'm all about relationships, building relationships, growing relationships, strengthening relationships. And frankly, Jim, and again, for the listeners out there, I can't wait to get out of the office. I can't wait to get out there and engage with our members, engage with our chapters. I welcome each an opportunity to be a guest speaker at a chapter meeting or whatever it might be.
Wonderful. Thank you. John, even though it's in the early stages as the executive director of the Grain Elevator and Processing Society, you must have had a lot of conversations with people leading up to the interview and selection process for executive director. And of course, so many more conversations within your first few weeks on the job. What is the underlying theme or themes you've gathered as a reason why grain handling and processing professionals lean towards GEAPS and are excited to be a member of the organization?
I think there truly is a central theme, and it's one that I not only researched on my own, I certainly heard commented on during the interview process. And yes, in these first 40 days have gathered just this resounding overall theme. GEAPS as a global organization, we are here to connect and serve the global grain industry. And when I marry that mission and vision of GEAPS as an organization with a strategic plan that was recently adopted by our International Board of Directors, I, Jim, come up with a central theme. And that central theme to me is this. GEAPS is a thriving community of thought leaders. We are here to enhance the careers of those that work in the grain and grain processing industry. And how do we do that? We do that by bringing awareness, by bringing information, by bringing educational and networking opportunities. That's the central theme, Jim, that I've heard and that I've come up with.
Love it. John, you'll be joining the show in many future Whole Grain podcast episodes, including our next episode, as we and other team members prepare you for the biggest and best show in the grain handling and processing industry. It's a special event taking place February 4th through the 7th at the Kansas City Convention Center in Kansas City, Missouri. We'll get you excited about the enormous trade show floor, the vast array of educational opportunities, and the networking opportunities, and so much more. We are talking about GEAPS Exchange. It will be a fun episode. We're looking forward to sharing that with you, so be on the lookout for it. Now, John, listeners can find out more information and register for the event by visiting jeeps.com/exchange. John, tell us what makes this event so special, and what are you looking forward to?
I'm really excited about Exchange. We're going to be more than 3,000 strong in attendance with nearly 400 exhibitors in our sold-out expo. Exchange is not only an opportunity to receive some educational sessions, but also some entertainment, and it's going to be fun. We're going to kick things off on Sunday with world-renowned drummer and motivational speaker, Sandy Gennaro. Sandy Gennaro, I didn't realize it until I had researched his background a bit, but nearly 30 years ago, I actually heard Sandy Gennaro on drums when he was with Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. Sandy Gennaro has performed in front of more than 1 billion people worldwide when performing with music icons like Michael Bolton, Cyndi Lauper, and as I mentioned, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. Educational opportunities that I mentioned just a bit ago. We're going to have more than 24 educational sessions across 4 different educational tracks. Almost unlimited opportunity there. The expo, I think it's our biggest in organizational history, and that nearly 400 exhibitors, we are sold out. And on that, for the listeners out there, I want to extend a special thank you to those exhibitors, to those sponsors. Exchange would not be possible without them. And then finally, we're going to close out Exchange by having some fun in the expo hall in the form of a music bingo. So again, to all the listeners out there, I'd encourage them to brush up on your music knowledge, because there's going to be a number of prize opportunities involved in that. So we're just really looking forward to it, Jim.
All right. John, it's been fun. We welcome you to GEAPS. We're excited about the future of GEAPS. I'm glad we were able to use this podcast channel to have a chance to have a conversation, and for listeners to learn more about you. This might be the first time members and grain professionals have heard your voice, and I think it may bring a sense of excitement and comfort to them of who is leading GEAPS. And hopefully your participation in the show will encourage others to reach out to you and meet you, whether it's in person at GEAPS Exchange or through our other channels of communication. Any final closing words before we conclude the show?
Sure. Well, first off, Jim, thank you for this opportunity. This has been fun. I truly am looking forward to many more opportunities to visit with you. But just a couple quick messages. The first one to our members. To our GEAPS members, we thank you. We are a member-driven organization, which means we are your organization. To the non-members out there, to the folks that work in the grain processing industries and anywhere in that value chain, I'd encourage you to check us out at GEAPS, GEAPS.com. We have a wide variety of membership offerings, and we'd love to welcome you to our family of more than 3,000 members.
John, thank you for spending quality time with Whole Grain listeners.
Jim, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Whole Grain podcast listeners, we thank you for joining us for today's show. You'll find the show on your favorite podcast app. By subscribing to the Whole Grain Show on your podcast app, you ensure all episodes are downloaded to your device as soon as it is released. And it's a great way for you to easily catch up on past episodes. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and a comment about the show. We thank those who have already done so. You can also access the podcast through the GEAPS website at jeeps.com/whole grain. You'll be able to access the audio player, see the show notes and links, as well as view the transcripts of the show. The Whole Grain Show is a podcast of GEAPS, the Grain Elevator and Processing Society. The Grain Elevator and Processing Society is the largest organization dedicated to advancing the grain handling and processing industry. be sure to check out GEAPS.com. That's GEAPS.com. If you are a vendor or supplier of the grain industry, did you know that the GEAPS Whole Grain Podcast offers a terrific opportunity to spotlight your business through audio ads? You can also be featured as a global thought leader by serving as a guest on the show as we work to advance the grain handling and processing industry. If you and your organization want to create an audio ad for a future episode, or you are interested in serving as a featured guest on the Whole Grain Show, please reach out to me, Jim Lenz, Director of Global Education at GEAPS and host and producer of the show. We have an in-house audio production studio where we can service your needs all from the comfort of a virtual environment. My email is james@jeeps.com, JAMES@GEAPS.com. We look forward to connecting with you. Continue listening, share the news of the show with your friends and colleagues. Have yourself a great day, and thanks for listening to Whole Grain.